I arrived at a meeting at my husband's company and saw the new director, a woman, wrap her arms around him and call him darling. I didn't cause a scene. Instead, I smiled and uttered a single sentence that made my husband go weak at the knees. Michael, is this your new caretaker? Pushing through the glass door of the conference room, I walked inside. The click of my high heels on the marble floor echoed through the space. For a moment, silence fell over the room. All eyes turned to me. I immediately spotted the trio at the far end of the long conference table. My husband, Michael Sterling, his partner, David Chen, and a woman in an elegant business suit with a cascade of wavy hair. Her hand was resting on the crook of my husband's arm. Her fingers lightly grazed the sleeve of his jacket. When Michael saw me, his face contorted as if he'd been struck by lightning. He froze. "Hannah, why are you here?" His voice trembled. I ignored him. My gaze was fixed on the woman. She looked to be about 37 or 38, impeccably groomed, with sophisticated makeup. A faint smile played at the corners of her lips, and the look she shot me was a clear challenge. "And who is this?" I asked with a smile, my tone as light as if I were asking what was for lunch. David, standing beside them, cleared his throat and hurried to make the introduction. "Hannah, this is our new director of marketing, Victoria Vance." Victoria released my husband's arm and extended her hand to me. Her smile was enchanting yet businesslike. "Hannah, a pleasure. I've heard so much about you. They recently poached me from Chicago. I hope I can count on your support in the future." I shook her hand. Her fingertips were ice cold, but her palm was slightly damp. "It's remarkable, Victoria. So young and already a director," I said, still smiling. "Would you mind telling me where you worked before?" 8 years in the marketing division at 3M in Chicago, Victoria answered flawlessly. I nodded and turned to my husband. Michael's face was as white as a sheet. Tiny beads of sweat dotted his forehead. His lips trembled slightly. He looked like a mouse cornered by a cat. "Mike," I called his name with a smile. "What's wrong with your face? You look terrible. You must be working too hard lately." "No," he managed to force out, his voice sounding raw. I walked to the table, casually pulled out a chair, and sat down, crossing one leg over the other. I surveyed the conference room. The renovation was tasteful. The panoramic windows offered a stunning view of downtown Denver, right onto the skyscrapers of the city center. "Please continue the meeting," I said. "I was just driving by and decided to stop in. Mike mentioned last night that you had an important meeting today. It occurred to me, we've been married for 20 years, and I've never once set foot in your office. So, I dropped by. I didn't think I'd be interrupting. As I said, married for 20 years. I deliberately emphasized the words. The corner of Victoria's mouth twitched, but she quickly put her professional mask back on, complete with its flawless smile. Michael stood there, his lips trembling. Finally, he choked out, "Hannah, maybe you could wait in my office? The meeting will probably go on for a while." No, that's all right. I waved my hand. "You all work. I'll just listen in from here. After all, I'm a shareholder in this company too. It can't hurt to be aware of the operational side of things, right?" After those words, the atmosphere in the room became instantly tense. Department heads exchanged glances, their eyes darting between Michael and Victoria. David coughed awkwardly and pretended to study the documents on the table. The expression on my husband's face became even more vivid. He alternated between pale and flushed, like a traffic light. But Victoria remained incredibly composed. She returned to the table, picked up a laser pointer, and addressed the room. "Then let's continue." We were discussing the marketing plan for the third quarter. Halfway through her sentence, she suddenly paused and looked at my husband. "Mike, what do you think of this plan?" The name Mike sounded so intimate and natural, as if she'd said it 1,000 times. I noticed several people in the room lower their heads, pretending to look at their notepads. Michael flinched as if pricked by a needle. The plan is good, but the budget needs to be reviewed again." His voice cracked. I smirked. I took a pack of slim cigarettes from my purse, pulled one out, and lit it, slowly blowing a ring of smoke. "Hannah, you can't smoke in here," Michael said reflexively. "Oh, I'm so sorry. Force of habit." I stubbed the cigarette out in the ashtray on the table. The ashtray was sitting right next to Victoria's hand. It was engraved. Michael Sterling, CEO. Interesting. Very interesting. The meeting continued. Victoria spoke clearly, citing precise data. She was genuinely a competent woman, but I noticed that whenever she reached a key point, she would instinctively glance at my husband. What was hidden in that glance was obvious to anyone. My husband sat on pins and needles the entire time. Sweat trickled down his neck, soaking the collar of his shirt. In the middle of the meeting, Victoria suddenly stopped, walked over to my husband, leaned in, and whispered something in his ear. The gesture was so intimate, it looked less like a boss speaking to a subordinate and more like a domestic scene. I could clearly see her lips almost touch his ear. The room became so quiet you could hear a pin drop. I picked up a glass of water, took a sip, swallowed slowly, and then, with a smile, I spoke. Darling. My voice was quiet, but every word carried clearly to everyone present. Is Director Vance part of your benefits package? Is she your caretaker? I see she's so concerned about you. It's as if you've hired her for personal assistance. Before I could finish, someone in the room snorted, quickly covering their mouth with their hand. Michael's face turned deathly pale. He shot up from his chair so abruptly that it flew backward and crashed against the wall. Hannah, what are you saying? His voice was shrill like a cornered animal. The composure on Victoria's face shattered. In an instant, it was replaced by a mixture of shame and anger, as if she'd been stripped naked in public. Hannah, what are you implying? Her voice turned cold. Oh, nothing in particular, I said with a radiant smile. It just seems to me that Victoria is a little too concerned about my husband. First, she's holding his arm, then she's whispering in his ear. Someone who didn't know any better might think she was Mrs. Sterling. Those words were like a knife twisting in a wound. Victoria's face turned crimson, her lips quivering. She tried to say something but couldn't get a word out. Michael rushed over to me in 3 strides and, lowering his voice, hissed, Hannah, you've misunderstood. Victoria was just what? I looked up at him, my smile never wavering. Just accidentally took your arm? Just accidentally called you darling? Just accidentally pressed her lips to your ear? The conference room descended into chaos. The department heads were whispering, the buzz of their voices growing louder. David quickly stood up to smooth things over. Hannah, it's really not what you think. Victoria is new to the company, still getting settled. Michael is just helping her, mentoring her a bit. David, I cut him off. Are you married? Yes, he stammered. And if your wife saw another woman holding your arm and calling you darling, would she also think it was just a misunderstanding? David opened his mouth but found nothing to say. Michael's legs started to shake. I could see the fabric of his pants trembling. He leaned on the table for support, his knuckles turning white. Hannah, please, listen to my explanation. It's really not what you think. There was a pleading, tearful note in his voice now. I stood up and patted his shoulder. Darling, why are you so nervous? I was just joking. Victoria is such a valuable specialist. You have to take good care of her. My voice dripped with irony as I stressed the words, take good care. Victoria stood at the other end of the table, glaring at me. Her eyes held a mixture of hatred, shame, and something else I couldn't quite decipher. I picked up my purse and headed for the exit. At the door, I suddenly stopped and turned back to my husband. By the way, Mike, I said, I came to tell you something. Your mother is flying in from Palm Springs this afternoon. She said she wants to stop by your office. I'm leaving now, but you all can continue your meeting. I turned and walked out. Behind me, I heard Michael's hurried footsteps. Hannah! Hannah, wait! I didn't stop, heading straight for the elevator. Just as the doors were about to close, a hand shot out and stopped them. Michael squeezed inside. The look on his face was one of utter doom. Hannah, there's really nothing going on with Victoria and me. He grabbed my arm, his voice rushed and trembling. She's just a very expressive person. She's like that with everyone. With everyone? And she calls everyone darling? I pulled my arm away. No, that was a slip of the tongue. She was just nervous. It was her first big meeting and she blurted it out without thinking. Mike? I interrupted him. How long have you two been together? Michael's pupils contracted sharply. He froze, as if he'd been electrocuted. The elevator reached the ground floor. The doors opened. I stepped out. He caught up to me and grabbed my arm again. Hannah, listen to me. We only have a professional relationship. A professional relationship? And she calls you darling? I turned and looked him straight in the eye. A professional relationship and she holds your arm? A professional relationship and she presses her lips to your ear? Michael, who do you take me for? After 20 years of marriage, you think I don't understand these things? Michael's lips trembled violently, his eyes turning red. Hannah, No explanations needed. I pressed the button for the parking garage elevator. Right now, you need to think about how you're going to explain this to your mother. She'll be at the office at 3 p.m. You have 3 hours. What? Mom is really coming? His voice broke. Of course she is. I stepped into the elevator. Did you think I was joking? The doors closed again. This time, he didn't try to follow. I leaned against the elevator wall and let out a long breath. My phone vibrated. It was a text from Victoria. I don't know where she got my number. Hannah, what Michael and I have is serious. We've been together for 2 years. He's wanted to leave you for a long time. He just couldn't find the right moment. Please, let him go. I stared at the message for 3 seconds. The corners of my mouth slowly turned up. Let him go. Fine. I was about to reply when my phone vibrated again. This time from my husband. Hannah, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I'll do whatever you say. Just please, I'm begging you, don't tell Mom. Her heart, you know she has a bad heart. She couldn't handle a shock like this. I didn't answer either message. I tossed my phone into my bag, started my car, and pulled out of the parking garage. In the rearview mirror, I saw Michael run out of the building. He stood on the curb, looking around helplessly like a lost kitten. I didn't slow down. Pressing the gas, I merged into traffic. The midday Denver sun was blinding. I turned on the radio. A Fleetwood Mac song was playing. Stevie Nicks' voice was gentle, yet laced with irony. Thunder only happens when it's raining. 20 years. I thought my marriage was an impenetrable fortress. It turned out a breach had been made 2 years ago. Michael Sterling, did you really think I just dropped by your office for a meeting? You're mistaken. This meeting is just getting started. Mom, your son has another woman. I drove to an old, trusted bakery near Union Station and bought 3 boxes of pastries. Then I went to the gourmet market next door and picked out a basket of premium cherries and 2 pineapples. The owner of the market smiled when she saw me. Hannah, getting groceries so early today? No, my mother-in-law is coming in this afternoon. I'm getting her some treats. I paid for everything. My phone wouldn't stop vibrating. Michael had called more than 10 times. I didn't answer a single call. Victoria sent 2 more messages. The first? Hannah, I know this is painful for you, but you can't control who you fall in love with. The second, I won't give up on Michael. What we have is real love. Real love. The phrase almost made me laugh out loud. A 4-2-year-old man and a 3-8-year-old woman throwing around the term real love like teenagers. It was utterly ridiculous. I put the groceries in my car and drove to the University of Colorado Hospital. After parking, I took out my phone and dialed a number. Hello, Brenda. It's Hannah. Hannah, it's been a while. How are you? Brenda's brisk voice came through the line. Brenda was the owner of the top private investigation agency in Denver. Her husband handled the fieldwork while she took clients and ran operations. They had been in the business for over 20 years and had seen it all. I'd met Brenda 10 years ago at a wedding, where she was helping a mutual friend catch her husband cheating. Her methods were so precise that all the women there were in awe. Since then, I'd occasionally invited her for coffee, and we'd maintained a good relationship. Brenda, I need your help. I'm listening. I need you to run a check on someone. Her name is Victoria Vance, originally from Chicago. She just moved to Denver. Claims she worked at 3M in marketing for 8 years. I need everything you can find on her. Family, marital status, financial situation. The more detailed, the better. There was a moment of silence on the other end. Brenda's voice became more cautious. Hannah, does this have anything to do with Mike? Just run the check. Money is no object. I understand. I'll have something for you in 3 days. The sooner, the better. After hanging up, I sat in my car, watching people come and go at the hospital entrance. Relatives pushing wheelchairs, visitors with baskets of fruit, elderly people with bags of medication. Each face told its own story, its own joy and sorrow. No one knew that inside this black Mercedes, a woman who had been married for 20 years was plotting a storm. My phone vibrated again. This time it was my mother-in-law. Hannah dear, I'm at the gate. My flight to Denver should land around 2:30. Her voice was cheerful. Eleanor, I'll pick you up at the airport. Oh, no need, dear. Mike said he'd send a driver for me. Eleanor, it's better if I pick you up. There's something I need to tell you. My mother-in-law paused. What's wrong? I'll tell you when you get here, I said. Eleanor, did you bring your heart medication? Yes, I have it, don't worry. Good. Eleanor, I'm going to tell you something now, and I need you to stay calm. Silence for a few seconds on the other end. My mother-in-law's voice became heavy. Tell me. There's a new woman at Mike's company. A director. They're too close. Another few seconds of silence. My mother-in-law, Eleanor Sterling, was a smart woman. So smart that you didn't need to say much for her to understand everything. I see. Her voice was frighteningly calm. Hannah, don't pick me up. I'll get there myself. I want to see for myself what kind of vixen has dared to touch my son's wife. The call ended. I lowered the phone. Suddenly, my eyes stung. 20 years. I remembered all the good things my mother-in-law had done for me. When I married Michael, I was only 22. A small-town girl who knew nothing. It was Eleanor who taught me how to run a household, how to deal with people. When I had a difficult childbirth, she was the one kneeling outside the operating room, praying for me. Michael Sterling, you could have done anything, but you should not have betrayed me, and you most certainly should not have betrayed your mother. At 2:30 p.m., I was at the office building. I didn't go up, but sat on a sofa in the lobby. The young woman at the reception desk brought me a cup of tea, her expression a mix of fear and evasion. Obviously, the rumors of what had happened in the conference room that morning had already spread throughout the company. At exactly 3:00 p.m., a silver Mercedes pulled up to the entrance. The door opened, and Eleanor Sterling stepped out. She was 68. In her youth, she had worked at a market stall, then started a construction business with her husband. After my father-in-law passed away, she had single-handedly carried the family, raising Michael and his younger brother, Robert. This woman had never been afraid of anything, and had never lost. She was wearing a dark burgundy dress, her hair perfectly coiffed. In her hand, she held an expensive black leather handbag. It was my gift to her for her birthday 3 years ago. She treasured it and rarely used it, but today she had brought it. I walked up to her. Eleanor, you're here. My mother-in-law looked at me, her gaze as sharp as a knife. Where are they? Upstairs. Let's go. In the elevator, Eleanor was silent. Her back was perfectly straight. I stood behind her, looking at her silhouette, remembering how 20 years ago, on our wedding day, she took my hand and said, Hannah, from this day on, you are like a daughter to me. If anyone ever hurts you, I will be the first to stand up for you. For 20 years, she had kept her word. The elevator stopped on the 12th floor. The doors opened, and we saw David. He was standing by the entrance, looking as if he'd swallowed a lemon. Eleanor, hello. He forced a smile. My mother-in-law didn't even glance at him, heading straight for the conference room. The door was ajar. From inside, we could hear Michael's muffled voice, but it was clear he was extremely agitated. I told you 100 times, be more careful around my wife. How did you expect her to react to what you pulled today? Then came Victoria's voice, with a tearful edge. I'm just used to calling you darling. I couldn't help it. Besides, you told me yourself your relationship had been dead for years. You said you were going to divorce her and marry me. Keep your voice down, Michael hissed. Why should I keep my voice down? You said she didn't know anything. You said you'd been sleeping in separate rooms for 2 years. You said... My mother-in-law kicked the door open. The bang echoed down the entire floor. Michael and Victoria spun around simultaneously. The expressions on their faces at that moment were astonishingly similar. Pure terror and shock, as if they'd seen a ghost. Mom! Michael's voice was thinner than a mosquito's buzz. Eleanor walked into the room, each step firm and deliberate. The sound of her heels on the floor was like the rap of a judge's gavel. Victoria instinctively took a step back, her eyes darting around. Eleanor stopped in front of her, looking her up and down before letting out a cold smirk. So, you're the one. This Victoria Vance. Victoria bit her lip and straightened up. Hello, Mrs. Sterling. Yes, I'm the Director of Marketing. Director of Marketing? Eleanor nodded. Good. Very good. Tell me, what's your salary here? Victoria was taken aback. She hadn't expected such a question. That's confidential company information. Confidential? Eleanor scoffed. My daughter-in-law knows to the last cent how much money comes into my son's company and where it goes. And you're telling me about confidentiality? Victoria's face grew even paler. Eleanor turned to Michael. He was in a full-blown panic, his legs shaking. Mike, come here, Eleanor said. Like a puppet on strings, Michael walked over. He hung his head, not daring to look his mother in the eye. Look up, she commanded. He slowly raised his head. His eyes were red. Eleanor drew back her hand and slapped him across the face. The sound was so sharp it echoed through the empty room for several seconds. Michael clutched his cheek, tears finally streaming from his eyes. Mom. Don't you dare call me Mom. Eleanor's voice was as cold as a winter wind. I don't have such a shameless son. For 20 years, Hannah has borne you children, managed your home, taken care of me in my old age. And what do? Find yourself some tramp on the side? Mrs. Sterling, you can't talk like that, Victoria protested. Michael and I love each other. And you, shut your mouth. Eleanor whipped around, her gaze like a dagger. I am speaking to my son. When did anyone give you permission to speak? Who do you think you are, butting into our conversation? Victoria was so thoroughly chastised that her face flushed and then paled, her lips trembling. She couldn't utter a word. Eleanor turned back to Michael. I'm asking you, how long have you been with this woman? Michael opened his mouth, his voice dry as sandpaper. 2 years. 2 years. Eleanor's eyebrows drew together. 2 years ago, Hannah had surgery for her fibroids, and you were out fooling around with other women? My eyes instantly filled with tears. That surgery 2 years ago. I went into the operating room alone and I came out alone. Michael said he was swamped with work at the company and couldn't get away. He stopped by on the day of the surgery, stayed for half an hour, and left. It turns out he wasn't busy with work. He was busy with another woman. Michael's legs gave out, and he collapsed to his knees. He knelt before his mother and sobbed, snot and tears streaking his face. Mom, I was wrong. I was so wrong. Please, forgive me just this once. Eleanor looked down at him. Her expression was filled with pain and disappointment, but most of all, a resolve I had never seen before. You shouldn't be kneeling before me, she said. You should be kneeling before Hannah. Michael turned to me and crawled on his knees in my direction. Hannah, I was wrong. I beg you, forgive me. I stood motionless, watching as he clutched my legs, sobbing at my feet. 20 years. 20 years of marriage, 2 children, a home. He had destroyed it all in an instant. Mike, I looked down at the top of his head, my voice so calm it surprised even me. Get up. The floor is cold. He froze, looking up at me with a flicker of hope in his eyes. You forgive me? I didn't answer. Instead, I took my phone out of my purse, opened the text from Victoria, and handed it to my mother-in-law. Eleanor, take a look at this. Eleanor took the phone. As she read the message, her face completely transformed. It wasn't anger anymore. It was something far worse. The tranquility that comes after total disillusionment. She handed the phone back to me, looked at the kneeling Michael, then at the ashen-faced Victoria, and finally, her gaze rested on me. Hannah, what do you want to do? She asked. I put my phone away, looked at Michael crying like a child, then at Victoria standing off to the side, biting her lip, trying to maintain her composure. The corners of my mouth slowly turned up. Eleanor, first, I want to go home. To which home? To our home, I said. The home that Mike and I built brick by brick. Why on earth should I give it up for someone else? Michael's eyes lit up. Hannah, you. But, I cut him off. Starting today, you are no longer welcome in that house. His smile froze on his face. And one more thing. I looked at Victoria. Victoria, you said you two have a real love. If that's the case, it needs to be tested. Starting tomorrow, I will be coming to work every day. To my husband's company. It's about time I learned how to run it. Victoria's face went completely white. Eleanor looked at me with undisguised approval. Michael collapsed to the floor like a sack of potatoes. I took my mother-in-law's purse, linked my arm through hers, and we walked out of the conference room without looking back. Behind us, we heard Michael's heart-wrenching cry. Hannah, listen to me. I can explain. Explanations. I had been listening to them for 20 years. I'd had enough. That evening, my mother-in-law and I had a quiet dinner at our home in Denver. The kids were away at college in Boston, so it was just the two of us. Our housekeeper had prepared a full spread: borscht, meatloaf with mashed potatoes, a Caesar salad, baked salmon, all of Eleanor's favorites. She ate half a bowl of soup and put her spoon down, looking at me with hesitation. Eleanor, have some more. I placed a piece of fish on her plate. Hannah, Eleanor set her fork down and looked at me seriously. Have you made up your mind? I knew what she was asking. I have, I replied. I'm not going to file for divorce. Eleanor's brow furrowed slightly. You're going to tolerate this? Not tolerate. I put my own fork down and looked her in the eye. Eleanor, to be honest, I'm not filing for divorce. Not because I feel sorry for Mike, but because I don't want the kids to have a broken family. Kevin is a junior, and Lena is a sophomore. This is a critical time for them. I can't let them be distracted by family problems. Eleanor was silent for a moment. And what about Mike and that woman? I will deal with that, I said. But not right now. The look in Eleanor's eyes changed, becoming more complex. She had lived a long life and seen a lot. She understood what my words "I will deal with" that meant. Hannah, Eleanor suddenly took my hand. You've been in our family for 20 years. I've never once thought of you as an outsider. Whatever you decide, your mother is on your side. My eyes immediately welled up. But Eleanor's voice became quiet and firm. If you ever decide you don't need that man anymore, you tell me. I'll talk to him myself. This house, the company, everything you're entitled to, you will get, down to the last penny. I squeezed her hand tightly and nodded. That night, Michael called countless times. I didn't answer once. He sent a barrage of texts. From Hannah, I was wrong to. If you don't answer, I'll kneel outside the gate all night to. Please, for the sake of 20 years of marriage, give me one more chance. And finally, are you really going to do this to me? I didn't reply to any of them. Around 1 a.m., I heard a car pull up outside. I went to the window and saw Michael's car. He was sitting inside, the window down, smoking one cigarette after another. I didn't go down. I stood by the bedroom window for a long time, just watching him, watching the glowing tip of his cigarette flare and fade in the darkness, like a caged animal pacing back and forth. 20 years. I suddenly remembered when we first got married. Every day, he would drive me to the market in his old Ford Escort. I would wrap my arms around his waist, the wind whistling in my ears. He would turn and smile at me. Hannah, I'll love you for my whole life. My whole life. Such beautiful words. It's just a shame their expiration date was only 18 years. He gave the remaining 2 to someone else. The next morning when I woke up, Michael's car was gone. The housekeeper said he had left before dawn. He had stood at the gate for a while, then got in his car and drove away. I nodded without asking for more details. After breakfast, I put on a sharp business suit, applied light makeup, and pulled my hair into a bun. I looked at myself in the mirror. 42 years old, well-maintained, my figure still good, almost no wrinkles. In a crowd of 20-year-olds, I might lose, but among my peers, I was confident I could hold my own. Victoria was 4 years younger than me. Neither her looks nor her demeanor surpassed mine. Her only advantage was being the other woman. No matter how delicious a home-cooked meal is, it will always lose to the forbidden fruit. I took my car keys and left. Today was my first day of work at the company. I had appointed myself to the position of special assistant to the CEO. This position required no one's approval because Michael and I had built this company together. 20 years ago, when we first got married, Michael was a sales manager at a construction firm, making $35,000 a year. I was an accountant at a trading company, making $28,000. We saved every penny, scrimping for 3 years to buy a small condo on the outskirts of Denver. Then his father died, leaving behind a nearly bankrupt building materials workshop. Michael quit his job to take it over. I invested all our savings and borrowed $200,000 from my parents to save the business. In those early years, I worked at my own company during the day, helped him with the books in the evening, and worked in the workshop on weekends. At our lowest point, I was 8 months pregnant, hauling product samples around the workshop. I was so exhausted I nearly went into early labor. Eleanor cried and begged me to quit. I told her, "It's okay, Eleanor. I'm young. I can handle it." The company grew from that small workshop into a mid-sized enterprise with an annual revenue of $20 million. My blood and sweat were in every dollar of that income. Who was Victoria Vance? She was just a passerby who decided to pick the fruit I had spent 20 years cultivating. My car pulled up to the building entrance. I walked in. The receptionist's face changed when she saw me. A mix of tension, fear, curiosity, and a hint of pity. Mrs. Sterling, good morning." "Good morning," I smiled at her. "Please inform all department heads that there will be a meeting in the conference room at 10 a.m. I have an announcement to make." "Of course, Mrs. Sterling." I stepped into the elevator and pressed the button for the 12th floor. In the mirror, I saw my own face, calm, confident, with a slight smile. No one knew that I hadn't slept a wink last night. No one knew that I had cried all night in the dark. Starting today, I would cry no more. Starting today, they would be the ones crying. The elevator stopped on the 12th floor. The doors opened, and I saw Victoria. She was standing at the end of the hallway, talking to an employee. When she saw me, her smile froze. I walked towards her, the sound of my heels confident and crisp on the floor. "Victoria." "Good morning." I greeted her with a smile. "Good morning, Hannah." Her voice was dry. She avoided my gaze. "You look tired. Didn't sleep well?" I asked with concern. She forced a smile. "I'm fine. Just a lot of work, I guess." "Work is work, but you can't forget about your health," I said. "By the way, Victoria, are you married?" Her expression changed. "I'm divorced." "Oh, what a shame." I sighed. "Such an outstanding woman like you, and divorced. It must have been your husband's fault." The corner of her mouth twitched. She didn't answer. I smirked, and without pressing, walked towards the CEO's office. Opening the door, I saw Michael. He was sitting at his desk, head in his hands, looking exhausted. When he heard the noise, he looked up. Seeing me, he jumped out of his chair as if he'd been electrocuted. "Hannah, good morning." I walked into the office, tossed my bag on the sofa, and looked around. I had designed this office myself. I chose the paintings on the walls. I brought back the souvenirs on the desk from my travels. I had even consulted with the designers 3 times on the color of the curtains. Every detail here bore my mark. But now, there were things in the office that didn't belong to me. On the desk stood a crystal frame with a picture of Michael and Victoria. They were on a beach, smiling at each other. On the windowsill was a pot with an orchid. I remembered Michael hated flowers. He said they attracted bugs. On the armrest of the sofa lay a woman's silk scarf. I took it all in, and with each new item, my heart grew colder. It wasn't sadness. It was a chill. An icy cold that went straight to the bone. Michael stood behind me like a guilty child, trying to explain. "Hannah, that frame. It was from a company retreat. We all went together." "All of you?" I picked up the frame. "But the photo is just the 2 of you." He opened his mouth but couldn't find the words. I put the frame back, picked up the scarf, and brought it to my face. The scent of expensive French perfume, the same one Victoria wore. "Mike." I carefully folded the scarf and placed it on the desk. "This office needs a redesign." I turned and faced him. "Starting today, I'll be working at the company as your special assistant. I need my own office." Michael froze. It took him a few moments to process what I had said. "You're going to work at the company? Why? Is that a problem?" I looked at him with a smile. "I am the largest shareholder in this company. My presence here is perfectly natural." "No, that's not what I meant," he flustered. "It's just, you don't really understand the business side of things." "I don't understand?" I laughed. "Michael, I handled the accounting for this company from its very first day. I was the one who drove all over the state finding our first suppliers. The current CFO is my college classmate. And you're telling me I don't understand?" Michael's face turned white. I stepped closer and looked him in the eye. "Do you not want me here because you're afraid I'll see something I'm not supposed to see?" His pupils narrowed, his lips trembled. He couldn't say a word. I patted his shoulder and walked out of the office. In the hallway, Victoria was still standing in the same spot. Seeing me, she looked flustered. I walked up to her. "Victoria," I said with a smile. Meeting at 10. Don't forget. With that, I walked towards the elevator. Behind me, I heard Victoria's muffled voice. Hannah, I want to talk to you. I stopped without turning around. About what? About me and Michael. I turned around slowly. Her expression had changed. The morning's timidity and guilt had been replaced by resolve. Her chin was slightly raised, a challenge in her eyes. All right, I smiled. What do you want to talk about? This isn't the right place. Let's find somewhere else. Let's go to the break room, I suggested. It's quiet there. We walked into the break room, one after the other. Victoria closed the door. The room was small, with just a table and 2 chairs. I sat down, and she sat across from me, as if we were in a formal negotiation. Hannah. Victoria took a deep breath, as if gathering her courage. I know you're in pain, but I hope you can listen to me calmly. I'm perfectly calm, I said. Go on. Michael and I have been together for 2 years. Her voice was quiet, but every word was distinct. We've been through a lot together. He told me your feelings for each other had faded long ago, that you've been sleeping in separate rooms for 2 years, that your marriage is just a formality. I looked at her and said nothing. I know it's wrong, she continued, but you can't help who you fall in love with. I don't want to fight you. I just hope you'll let him go. Let him go? I repeated the words. They sounded absurd. Yes. Her eyes reddened. I love him, and he loves me. There are no feelings left between you. Why not just part amicably? I picked up a glass of water from the table, took a sip, and swallowed slowly. Victoria, I set the glass down. I'm going to ask you a few questions. Ask away. The fact that my husband and I have no feelings left, he told you that? Yes. The fact that we've been sleeping in separate rooms for 2 years, he told you that too? Yes. And what else did he tell you? That his wife is inattentive, unaffectionate, that she doesn't understand him? That coming home is like going to prison for him? Victoria froze. I had clearly hit the mark. I smirked. Victoria, let me tell you a fact. My husband and I sleep in separate rooms because 2 years ago, after my surgery, the doctors recommended we abstain from intimacy for 3 months. When the recovery period was over, he didn't want to move back into our bedroom. He said he snored and didn't want to disturb my sleep. I thought it was a considerate gesture. Now I realize he just had someone else and I was in his way. Victoria's face turned white. And another thing, I stood up, looking down at her. You say our feelings have faded. Then tell me, did he take you to Palm Springs to see my mother-in-law for Christmas this year? Her face was a mask of confusion. No, I scoffed. Well, I'll tell you. This past Christmas, he took me and the kids to Palm Springs. We spent 5 days with his mother. We went to church together, went out to seafood restaurants together. The whole family was there. If the feelings had faded, why would he take me to see his family? Victoria's lips trembled. And one more thing. I took out my phone and opened my photo album. Look, this is a picture from his birthday last month. The whole family at a restaurant. He has his arm around me. See how happy he looks? Tears started streaming down her face. I put my phone away. Victoria, I'm not telling you this to hurt you. I want you to understand. 9 out of 10 things a man tells his mistress are lies. He says things are bad with his wife to make you feel special, like you're the only one who understands him. But in reality, when he goes home, he hugs his wife, and on holidays, he takes her to see his parents. In his life, you are just an amusement. Victoria covered her mouth with her hands, her body shaking with sobs. You say you have real love. I sighed. Then tell me, why is he afraid to tell his mother about you? Why is he afraid to tell his children? Why is he afraid for anyone to know? She didn't answer, just cried. Because he knows perfectly well, I continued, that you have no place in his family. His mother won't accept you. His children won't accept you. What will his relatives and friends think of him? He can't afford that kind of disgrace. On what grounds do you say I'm not worthy? Victoria suddenly looked up, her eyes red. On the grounds that I am his legal wife, that I bore him 2 children, that I have taken care of his mother for 20 years, that I was by his side when he had nothing. I enunciated every word. And you? You showed up when he became successful. On what grounds? Her face turned crimson, her lips quivering. Finally, she choked out, no matter what you say, I won't give up on him. I looked at her and suddenly felt a profound exhaustion. Not from anger, but from a kind of internal depletion. Then try, I said. I turned and walked out of the break room. In the hallway, a few employees were curiously peeking in our direction. When they saw me, they quickly looked away. Ignoring them, I walked to the conference room. At 10 a.m., the meeting started on time. The department heads filed into the room one by one. Each one froze for a moment upon seeing me, then quickly sat down, head bowed. Michael sat at the head of the table, his face ashen. Victoria was the last to enter. Her eyes were slightly swollen, but she had managed to fix her makeup. I sat to Michael's right. Colleagues, I cleared my throat. Effective today, I am assuming the role of special assistant to the CEO. The company's financial status, personnel decisions, and all key matters will now require my approval. A heavy silence fell over the room. Everyone sat with their heads down, afraid to look at me or Michael. Michael's face looked even worse, but he said nothing. Victoria sat at the other end of the table, her face unreadable. And one more thing. I opened a folder of documents. I am proposing a full internal audit of the company. Finance, HR, procurement. We will review every department. Michael's head snapped up. Hannah, what is this for? What's wrong? I looked at him. The company has been around for many years, but a comprehensive audit has never been conducted. We've grown. It's time to put things in order. He opened his mouth but couldn't say anything. Victoria's face also turned pale. I scanned the room. It's decided. Meeting adjourned. The first week at the company was like dropping a shark into a fish tank. On the first day, I demanded that the finance department bring me all the accounting records for the last 3 years. The CFO, my old classmate Katie, looked at me with a complicated expression but silently ordered the documents to be moved. On the second day, I requested all personnel files from HR. When I got to Victoria's file, I studied it with particular care. Victoria Vance, born 1986, from Chicago, graduate of Northwestern University, management. Divorced, no children. Previous employer, 3M, deputy head of marketing. Annual salary, $120,000. At our company, as director of marketing, her salary was $200,000, a full $80,000 above the market rate. I called the head of HR. Who approved Miss Vance's salary? The CEO, personally, came the answer after a pause. I hung up and smirked. Generous, aren't you, Michael? The third day, I spent meeting with department heads. They all entered my office with trepidation. I didn't pressure anyone, just chatted about their work. At the end of each meeting, I would casually ask, "So, how is it working with Victoria?" Most said she was a strong professional. Only a young guy from procurement, an analyst named Mark, hesitated and said, "Hannah, I don't know if I should say this. After Victoria came on board, we signed a major contract with a supplier called Vance Holdings for $3.2 million. But I checked them out. The firm was registered just recently. The registered capital is only $50,000, and the legal address is a residential apartment in Chicago." I reported this to Victoria. She said the CEO personally approved this supplier and that I shouldn't stick my nose where it doesn't belong. I nodded. I understand. Don't say anything about this to anyone else. I'll handle it. After Mark left, I wrote Vance Holdings in my notebook and circled it. On the fourth day, Brenda called. Hannah, I have it all. Victoria Vance, from Chicago, born 1986, Northwestern grad. Married in 2017, divorced in 2021. Ex-husband's name is Leo Vance. He had a trading company in Chicago, imported building materials. Imported building materials. My heart skipped a beat. Yes, his firm was called Vance Global Imports. It went bankrupt last year. Leo was left with a mountain of debt and skipped town. Victoria divorced him right after that. I closed my eyes, my mind racing. Imported building materials. Supplier Vance Holdings. $3.2 million contract. Brenda, did they have any financial ties after the divorce? I was just about to tell you. I found out that a firm called Vance Holdings LLC is registered in Victoria's name. The registration address is her parents' apartment in Chicago. The firm was created late last year. Registered capital $50,000. The founder is her mother, Tamara Vance. Does this firm have any deals? It does. They recently signed a major contract with a construction company from Denver for $3.2 million. And that company? It's my husband's company. We were both silent for a moment. Hannah. Brenda's voice grew quieter. Something isn't right here. This woman didn't just come to steal your husband. There's something else going on. After hanging up, I sat there, tapping my fingers on the desk. Vance Holdings, $3.2 million, ex-husband, bankruptcy, debt. The picture was starting to come together. I called Mark from procurement. Mark, do you still have any materials from the Vance Holdings contract? Yes. Hannah, I made a copy. Bring it to me. 10 minutes later, the folder was on my desk. A standard supply agreement. Client, our company. Supplier, Vance Holdings, LLC. Subject, building materials. Amount, $3.2 million. Delivery term, 3 months. In the signature block, Michael Sterling's signature was on the client side. On the supplier side was the signature of Tamara Vance, Victoria's mother. I stared at that name for a long time, then took a picture of the contract. On the 5th day, I flew to Chicago without telling anyone. During the 3-hour flight, I thought about how some things, once you start investigating, you can't stop. It's like opening Pandora's box. But I had no choice. If Victoria had just wanted to steal my husband, it would have been a personal matter. But if she came to defraud my company, that was something else entirely. The legal address for Vance Holdings was in an old apartment building in a working-class neighborhood. I knocked on the door for a long time before an elderly woman opened it. Who are you looking for? Hello. Does Tamara Vance live here? I'm Tamara. Who are you? Hello. I'm a colleague of your daughter, Victoria. I was in Chicago from Denver and decided to pay you a visit. The woman's face changed. Is something wrong with Victoria? No. The company just asked me to deliver a document. I took out a copy of the contract. Tamara, your signature is on this agreement. Do you remember it? The woman took the paper, her face a mask of complete confusion. I don't remember. Victoria asked me to sign some papers, so I signed them. And did your daughter tell you this was a contract for her own company? Her company? Victoria has her own company? I don't know. She just said it was a formality. Looking into her bewildered eyes, I understood everything. Victoria had registered a company in her mother's name and signed a $3.2 million contract with the company where she herself worked. The money left our company and went into her mother's account. Where it went after that, only she knew. That's why she had been so brazen. That's why she wasn't afraid of me. She didn't think she had me on the hook. She thought she had Michael on the hook. When I got back to Denver, it was already dark. I had over 10 missed calls on my phone, mostly from Michael. I didn't call back. As I pulled up to the house, I saw his car. He was sitting inside, smoking. When he saw me, he jumped out and ran to my window. Hannah, where have you been? I've been calling you all day. I lowered the window. In a week, he had lost a lot of weight. His face was gaunt, and he was covered in stubble. I was in Chicago. Chicago? Why? Visiting Victoria's mother. Michael's face turned deathly pale. He opened and closed his mouth, unable to say a word. Seeing his reaction, I knew. He knew everything. He knew Victoria had opened a company in her mother's name. He knew something was wrong with the $3.2 million contract. He knew it all. Mike, I said calmly, $3.2 million is no joke. If this comes out, what do you think will happen? His legs buckled and he slid down, leaning against my car door. Hannah, let me explain. I don't want to hear it. I just want to know one thing. How did you and she split the $3.2 million? His body shuddered as if from a blow. Hannah, what are you saying? Split it? Don't pretend. Vance Holdings is her mother's company. You two signed the contract. The money went to their account. It had to have gone somewhere. Tell me, how much of it did you take? Michael's face turned gray, like a corpse. Hannah, I didn't take any money. I didn't know anything about this. You didn't know? I scoffed. Your signature is on the contract. Victoria brought me that contract. She said it was a new supplier, with prices 15% lower than our old ones. And you signed it. I finished for him. Michael, You've been in this business for 20 years. A new supplier, and you didn't check their reputation or their documents? You just took a woman at her word and signed a $3.2 million contract? Tears streamed from his eyes. Hannah, I really didn't know. I thought it was just a regular... Enough. I raised the window and started the car. Hannah, don't go. He started banging on the window. Please listen to me. I ignored him, pulled into the garage and closed the door. Sitting in the car, I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. $3.2 million. We had earned that money together. Every dollar was clean. And now, where was it? Funneled through Victoria's mother's account, then transferred, divided, spent to pay off her ex-husband's debts. I didn't know, but I was going to find out. My phone vibrated. A text from Victoria. Hannah, I heard you went to see my mother in Chicago. Do whatever you want to me, but leave her out of this. She doesn't know anything. I stared at the message, then replied, Victoria, I have something to tell you too. Do whatever you want with Michael Sterling, but don't touch the company's money. I want the $3.2 million back, down to the last cent. After sending the message, I turned off my phone, took a shower, and got into bed. The night was dark and starless. I lay with my eyes open, thinking about Michael's pale face, his trembling lips, his tears, 20 years of marriage. And for some woman, he was willing to steal from his own company. This man was no longer the Michael I knew. Or maybe I had never really known him at all. I lay awake all night, staring at the ceiling. The last 2 years played out in my mind like a movie. 2 years ago, Michael started traveling for work more often. 2 years ago, he started complaining that I put too much salt in the food, that I bought him old-fashioned clothes, that I talked too loudly. 2 years ago, he started sleeping in a different room, under various pretexts. It all started 2 years ago. At the time, I thought he was just stressed from the growing business. I felt sorry for him, made him soup, bought him expensive suits, created a cozy home so he wouldn't have to worry about anything. And he got himself a mistress while I was at home playing the devoted wife. I suddenly burst out laughing. Not a bitter laugh, but a genuine one, at myself. 20 years of marriage had turned into a joke. As soon as it was light, I got up, showered, put on a tracksuit, and went for a run in the park. The park was full of elderly people in the morning. They greeted me cheerfully. I smiled back. No one knew that this calm-looking woman had just found out yesterday that her husband and his mistress had stolen $3.2 million from her. When I got home, I had breakfast. The housekeeper said Michael had sat outside the gate all night. I didn't ask. In the middle of breakfast, my mother-in-law called. Hannah, I'm coming to Denver this afternoon. Eleanor, why are you? I'm worried. Mike called me yesterday crying. He said you want to divorce him, send him to prison. What happened? I took a deep breath. Eleanor, let me pick you up. I'll explain everything. After hanging up, I realized I had lost my appetite. Michael had called his mother, complaining, playing the victim. Fine. You want to play games? Let's play. At 9 a.m., I arrived at the office. The atmosphere was oppressive. Everyone avoided my gaze. As soon as I sat at my desk, Katie, the CFO, came in. Hannah, her face was worried. Victoria submitted her resignation this morning. And? Mike didn't sign it. Not only that, at the morning meeting, he told all the department heads that someone in the company was spreading rumors, that Victoria is innocent, and that if anyone kept talking, they could clear out their desks. I scoffed. What else did he say? Katie lowered her voice. He said you're just a woman, you don't understand business. He said to let you have your tantrum, and you'll calm down. Katie, tell me, how was that $3.2 million payment to Vance Holdings processed? Hannah, I was just about to tell you. Something's not right with that payment. The wire transfer only has Mike's signature. The financial control procedures were bypassed. So the money went out on his sole authority? Yes. The accounting team noticed, but Victoria said it was a secret deal Mike was handling personally. I went to him. He said everything was fine and told me not to meddle. Katie's eyes reddened. Hannah, I'm sorry. I should have told you right away. It's not your fault. Do something for me. Make copies of all the documents related to this payment. Leave the originals where they are. Katie nodded. Hannah, what are you going to do? Just bring me the copies first. When she left, I called Brenda. Brenda, one more thing. Find Victoria's ex-husband, Leo Vance, and find out why his company went bankrupt, who he owes money to, and how much. That will take some time. How much? Give me 3 days. Fine. Money is no object. After hanging up, I sat, tapping my fingers on the desk. Leo Vance, bankruptcy, debt. Victoria, $3.2 million. A company in her mother's name. The links in the chain were starting to connect. At 2 p.m., I met my mother-in-law at the airport. She was wearing a dark purple dress, her expression grim. I silently helped her into the car and handed her a folder of documents. It contained everything: the registration data for Vance Holdings, the contract, the payment records, Victoria's dossier from Brenda. She flipped through page after page, her face turning from grim to ashen. When she reached the end, her hands were trembling. $3.2 million, she rasped. That witch opened a company in her mother's name and stole $3.2 million. And Mike, did he know? His signature is on the contract. She closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. When she opened them again, there was not a trace of warmth in them. Hannah, what are you going to do? Eleanor, I want to find out one thing. Did Victoria do this alone, or was Mike in on it with her? And if he was in on it, I looked her in the eye. Then it's not just an affair anymore. It's fraud. People go to prison for that. Her body went limp. She sagged back in her seat. Eleanor, are you all right? I'm fine, she waved her hand. Hannah, do what you think is right. I'm on your side. Even if Mike is guilty, he chose this path himself. Tears welled in my eyes. This elderly woman, faced with her son's potential crime, chose justice over covering it up. Eleanor, thank you. For what? You're like a daughter to me. Back at the office, I found a note from Victoria on my desk. She invited me for coffee that evening at the cafe downstairs. I threw the note away and called Michael. Mike, 7 p.m. at the cafe downstairs. Victoria invited me for coffee. You should come too. There was silence on the other end. Hannah, what are you planning? Just having some coffee. What, are you scared? I'm not scared. See you at 7 then. I hung up. Tonight's coffee was not going to be a quiet affair. At 7 p.m., I was there. Victoria was already at a table. What will you have? Thanks, but I don't drink coffee made by strangers. I prefer my own, from home, I said. Her face twitched. Hannah, what else have you dug up? A lot. I placed a sheet of paper on the table. Victoria Vance, born 1986, divorced Leo Vance in 2021. His company went bankrupt. He fled with debts. After that, you registered Vance Holdings in your mother's name and came to my husband's company with a $3.2 million contract. Am I right? Her face was white. What do you want? That's what I want to ask you. Did you come to my husband's company to steal him or to steal our money? At that moment, Michael stormed up to the table, his face contorted with rage. He grabbed Victoria's arm. Victoria, you lied to me. You said this was a friend's company. Victoria wrenched her arm away. I lied to you? Michael, have you no shame? What about the $1.2 million you took? Did you forget about that? I whipped my head around to look at Michael. He shrank. You're lying. I didn't take any money from you. On the 18th of last month, I transferred $1.2 million to your personal account. You said you needed the money for an investment. Did you forget? Do you want me to show you the bank statement? The other patrons in the cafe turned to look at our commotion. Michael was silent, his lips trembling. I stood up. So, you two split the money. Fine. Very fine. I picked up my bag. In that case, there's nothing more to discuss. Tomorrow morning, I'm coming to the office with my lawyer. Hannah, Michael grabbed my arm. You can't do this. This company is our life's work. Our life's work? I threw his hand off. Michael, the fact that you got a mistress, I could have tolerated. But the fact that you conspired with her to steal from the company, that I will not tolerate. I turned and walked out. Behind me, I heard Victoria's hysterical sobs and Michael's angry shouting. I didn't look back. The night air was cold on my face. The moon in the sky was a silver crescent. Tomorrow, that crescent would fall like a guillotine. The next morning, I arrived at the office with my lawyer, Arthur Cohen, the best corporate litigation attorney in the city. Eleanor had recommended him. A delegation led by Michael was already waiting for us in the hallway. Behind him stood the department heads. Victoria was hiding at the very back. Hannah. Michael's voice was barely a whisper. Can we talk? We can. In the conference room, we took our seats. Michael at the head of the table, me to his right, with Arthur beside me. Colleagues, I began, I've gathered you here today to make an announcement. Effective immediately, I am officially assuming the position of CEO of this company. Michael Sterling is removed from his position and will be reassigned as a consultant, with no decision-making authority. A murmur went through the room. Hannah, you can't, Michael choked out. Why can't I? I looked at him. I own 45% of the shares, you own 40%, and your mother owns 15%. I am the majority shareholder, and I have the right to decide who runs this company. Arthur stepped in, his voice dry and official. According to corporate law, the shareholder with the largest stake has the right to call a meeting and change leadership. Hannah's decision is perfectly legal. Michael was silent. And one more thing. Regarding the recent $3.2 million contract, we have discovered serious irregularities. The supplier, Vance Holdings, is a shell company. I have already instructed Mr. Cohen to file a report with the district attorney's office to open a criminal investigation. Victoria shot up, knocking over her chair. Hannah! You what? I looked at her calmly. Miss Vance, or should I say Mrs. Vance, where did the $3.2 million your company received go? You have no proof. No? I smirked and held up the documents. Here are the registration details for your company in your mother's name. Here is the contract with your and Michael's signatures. Here is the wire transfer confirmation. Is that not enough? She staggered. And another thing. Your ex-husband, Leo Vance, left behind over $2 million in debts after his bankruptcy. How much of our $3.2 million went to paying off his debts? Victoria collapsed into her chair, sobbing. The department heads looked from her to Michael. Hannah, he whispered. I really didn't know. Didn't know what? That she was deceiving you? Michael, you've been in this business for 20 years and you couldn't vet one woman? Or did you not want to, because you took $1.2 million from her? I didn't take it. He jumped up. She was repaying a loan. The room gasped. Last year, she told me her husband's company was in trouble and asked me for a $1.2 million loan. I lent it to her. Then she brought me this contract and said she would repay the loan from the payment amount. I didn't know it was her firm. So you knew about her husband's problems. You knew she needed money. You lent her $1.2 million, and then you signed a $3.2 million contract without any questions. Michael, were you helping her repay a loan or were you helping her steal from the company? Victoria jumped up, her face streaked with tears. Hannah, don't you dare act like a saint? You think your husband is an angel? He was with me for 2 years, promised to marry me, and all the while he was taking money from me to plug holes in his own company. All of you Sterlings are cut from the same cloth. Victoria, Michael roared. What, Michael? She snapped back. Did you forget how I helped you with those clients down south? Did you forget sleeping with me? The room erupted into chaos. I watched this pair tear each other apart and felt a sense of absolute calm. Enough. My voice was quiet, but everyone fell silent. Your personal dramas don't interest me. Victoria, as of today, you are fired. The company is suing you for fraud. I suggest you think about what you're going to tell the investigators. Michael, I turned to him. We'll talk at home. I gathered my documents. Meeting adjourned. As I left the room, I heard Victoria's hysterical screams. I didn't turn back. In the elevator, Arthur asked, Hannah, what's next? Arthur, please prepare the divorce papers. You've decided to file? Not just file. I want him to walk away with nothing. In the car, I got a text from Michael. Hannah, please don't do this. We've been together for 20 years. I replied, 20 years together, and this is how you treat me. I tossed the phone in my bag and drove. The sun was shining brightly. On the radio, some old singer was crooning about a woman's fate, and I started to cry. Not from grief, from anger, an anger that had been building for so long and had finally found a release. I pulled the car over to the side of the road and sobbed, my head against the steering wheel. After I had cried it all out, I wiped my tears and kept driving. From this day on, I wasn't Mrs. Sterling. I was Hannah, a woman betrayed by her husband, deceived by his mistress, but who stood up and moved on. I didn't need anyone's pity. I needed the people who hurt me to pay. When I got home, I saw my mother-in-law. She was on the phone, looking very upset. "Eleanor, what is it?" Robert called. He said Mike called him, crying, saying you want to send him to prison. "Eleanor, I don't want to send him to prison. I just want to get back what belongs to me." Eleanor looked at me. "Hannah, are you really going to divorce him?" I looked into her eyes, which were full of anxiety and some unreadable hope. "Eleanor, if I divorce him, will you blame me?" She was silent for a long time, then squeezed my hand tightly. "Hannah, you've been in this family for 20 years. I know what kind of person you are. If Mike hadn't crossed every line, you wouldn't have done this. Whatever you decide, I will support you." I started crying again. But one thing, Eleanor's voice turned strict. "You must see this $3.2 million matter through to the end. If Mike really took that money, he has to answer for it." I nodded. That was enough. In this world, it's enough to have just one person on your side. That evening, Michael didn't come home. The housekeeper said he called and would be sleeping at the office. I said nothing. Lying in bed, I replayed the day's events. What was wrong? Victoria's reaction was too extreme. It wasn't just anger. It was the desperation of a cornered animal. What was she afraid of? And her last words. "You think your husband is an angel?" What else did she know? I texted Brenda. "Brenda, I need you to check Michael's bank accounts for the last 2 years, as fast as you can. I was going to close this case. This time, no one would deceive me." Brenda worked fast. 3 days later, she brought the documents to me herself. "Hannah, here's what you asked for. But I have to warn you, the news isn't good." I opened the folder. It was Michael's bank statements for the last 2 years. I flipped through page after page, my heart turning to ice. Last March, a transfer of $800,000 to Vance Global Imports, Victoria's ex-husband's company. Last May, another $1.2 million to the same company. Last August, $500,000 to Victoria, personally. Last October, $1 million to Victoria, personally. January of this year, $700,000 to Victoria, personally. A total of $4.2 million. But that wasn't the worst of it. On the next page, I saw a transfer for $2 million. The recipient, my older brother, Peter. What? What is this?" My voice trembled. I checked. Brenda sighed. "That $2 million went to your brother, and then to his wife's relatives' accounts. Did your brother have business trouble last year?" I closed my eyes. "Yes, he did. He went bankrupt, got into debt, and came to me asking for money. I talked to Michael, and he transferred the money without question. I was so touched at the time, thinking that even though he was a bit stingy, he cared about my family. It turns out it was company money. It turns out he had been siphoning money from the accounts for a long time." "And that's not all," Brenda said quietly. "Look further." I turned the page. June of last year, $3 million to a company called Sterling Construction. September, another $2.5 million. February of this year, $4 million. Sterling Construction. I knew that company. It was Michael's younger brother, Robert's firm. I looked up at Brenda. "Robert?" She nodded. "The money left your company's accounts and went to Sterling Construction under the guise of investments. But I checked. Sterling Construction hasn't returned a single cent of profit to your company. Moreover, these transfers didn't go through the standard approval process. Michael approved them personally." I leaned back in my chair. $4.2 million to Victoria and her husband. $2 million to my brother. $9.5 million to Robert. A total of $15.7 million. And that was just in the last 2 years. "Brenda, what about Robert's company?" "Sterling Construction is in bad shape. Several major projects failed. The company's debt is around $30 million. The banks are already demanding repayment. He's only staying afloat because of these new infusions." I closed my eyes. Robert, the younger brother, the family favorite, Michael always gave in to him. Now Robert's company was sinking, and Michael was using our company to save it. This wasn't just an affair. It was a conspiracy between 2 brothers to siphon money from the company. Michael was the front, Robert was the recipient, and Victoria was just a pawn in their game, a distraction. But I didn't understand one thing. What was her role? And where did the rest of the money from the $3.2 million go? I called Katie. Katie, please trace the movement of money from the Vance Holdings account. Every single cent. Then I looked at the statements again. The transfers to Robert were made at very strange times. June, $3 million. In July, Robert wins a major bid. September, $2.5 million. In October, he gets new equipment. February, $4 million. In March, he buys a plot of land. Each sum had a purpose. But if these were investments, where were the profits? I found no mention of dividends from Sterling Construction in the accounting records. I called Michael. Mike, I want to ask you why we still haven't received any dividends from our investments in Sterling Construction. He was silent for a long time. Hannah, Robert is going through a tough time right now. He said he'll pay it back as soon as he can. A tough time? And you keep pouring money into his company? Michael, is this an investment or a charity? Hannah, Robert is my brother. He's your brother, but the company's money is ours. You're siphoning funds to plug the holes in your brother's business. Did you ask me? He fell silent again. And the $2 million you lent my brother was company money. Why didn't you tell me? Hannah, your brother came to you himself. I know, but I didn't know it was company money. You used our shared funds behind my back to solve your own and others' problems. Did you ever think of me as the majority shareholder? He couldn't answer. Tomorrow at 3 p.m. You, me, Robert, and your mother. A meeting. We need to sort this out. Hannah, don't involve Mom. Why not? Your mother is a shareholder. She has the right to know where the money is going. But she has a bad heart. Then you shouldn't have done things that could break her heart. I hung up. I was shaking with an anger you only feel when you're betrayed by the person closest to you. The next day in the conference room, the atmosphere was oppressive. Michael sat with a gray face. Next to him was his brother Robert, wearing a bright polo shirt and a smug grin. At the head of the table sat my mother-in-law, her back perfectly straight. Well then, let's begin, she said. Robert, how are things at Sterling Construction? Great, Mom, he smiled. We just won a major project. Really? Her voice was calm. Then why haven't we seen any dividends in our accounts yet? Robert's smile froze. Mom, I told Mike. You told him what? That you'll wait for the money to magically appear? I placed his company's financial report on the table. Robert, your firm has a debt-to-equity ratio of over 80%. The banks are demanding loan repayments. What profits are you talking about? Robert's face turned crimson. Hannah, are you spying on me? And why shouldn't she? My mother-in-law interjected. Our company invested $9.5 million in yours. Don't we have the right to know what's going on? Robert had nothing to say. Mike. Eleanor turned to her older son. Explain. Mom. I just wanted to help Robert, he mumbled. Help? She scoffed. $9.5 million is a little help? Did you ask anyone's permission? Mine? The other shareholders? Michael was silent, his head bowed. Robert. She looked at her younger son again. When are you going to return the money? Mom, I don't have that kind of money right now. You don't? Then how do you plan to pay it back? Robert shot up. Mom, what is this? I'm your son. You're supposed to help me. Not gang up on me with this. This outsider. Outsider. The sound of a slap echoed through the room. Eleanor had hit him. Don't you dare. Her voice trembled. Who did you call an outsider? Her? He had pointed at me. She is not family. Hannah has been in this family for 20 years. She bore you nephews. She cared for me. She invested her own money when we were on the brink of bankruptcy. And you call her an outsider? And you, she turned to Michael, as the older brother, instead of setting him straight, you enable him. You steal from our shared company to save him. Did you think of anyone else? Of Hannah? Of the employees? Michael started to cry. Mom, I was wrong. You know that now. Her voice was filled with boundless disappointment. But what good does it do? Where is the money? I stood up and went to my mother-in-law, putting my arm around her. Mr. Cohen, she said, addressing the lawyer. What does the law say? According to the law, Arthur began. The misappropriation of company funds without shareholder consent is a felony. If the company presses charges, Michael could go to prison. And you, Robert, as an accomplice as well. Robert's face turned white. Mom, you can't. I can. Her voice was like ice. So I'm giving you a chance. 1 month to return the $9.5 million. Every cent. Mom, that's impossible. That's your problem. If you don't, I will press charges. And don't blame your mother. She stood up and walked out. I looked at the two brothers and followed her. The month Eleanor gave them hung over their heads like the sword of Damocles. Robert called his mother and brother constantly, begging for help. Eleanor wouldn't take his calls. Victoria didn't let up either. After being fired, she caused a scene at the security desk, then filed a complaint with the labor board. Arthur quickly handled it by presenting evidence of her fraud. Then she sued Michael for sexual harassment. The story made it into the local papers. That witch wants to go down, but she wants to take Mike with her, Eleanor said over breakfast. Eleanor, don't worry. Harassment has to be proven. She has no proof. But we have proof of her fraud. If she keeps this up, it will only be worse for her. Soon, Brenda called. Hannah, I found Leo Vance. You found him? Where? The Philippines. He was hiding out in Manila. He just came back. I had my guys pick him up at the airport. He told me everything. What did he say? Hannah, it's much more complicated. His divorce from Victoria was a sham. They never really split. It was done to hide assets from creditors. The idea to infiltrate your husband's company was his. They planned to slowly bleed it dry. The $3.2 million was just the beginning. Victoria had dirt on Michael the money transfers to his brother. She was going to use it to blackmail him for more. My head spun. So that was it. This wasn't a love triangle. It was a well-planned scam. Brenda? Where is Leo now? With me? Do you want to meet him? Yes. Bring him to Denver. All the pieces of the puzzle had come together. It was time to end the game. 3 days later, I met with Victoria in a quiet tea house. She looked terrible thin, with dark circles under her eyes. Miss Vance, it's been a while. How's your husband? She turned pale. What are you talking about? Your husband, Leo Vance. He's back from the Philippines. Did you know? The teacup in her hands shattered on the floor. You're lying. We've been divorced for years. Divorced? I placed a court order on the table, which declared their divorce fraudulent for the purpose of evading creditors. You never divorced. You were scamming everyone together. I played a recording. Leo's voice filled the room, confessing to everything. Victoria collapsed into her chair, sobbing. I'm giving you 2 options, I said. 1, you return the $3.2 million, every cent, and you disappear. I'll drop the matter. 2, I hand all this evidence over to the DA, and you both go to prison. I don't have $3.2 million, she whispered. Leo spent most of it on his debts. I only have a little over $1 million left. That's your problem. You have 1 month. As I was leaving, I paused at the door. By the way, Victoria, Michael never loved you. You were just a tool for him to solve business problems. That $1.2 million he lent you was company money. You thought you were playing him, but he was playing you. Her sobbing stopped. I walked outside. My phone vibrated. A text from Arthur. Hannah, Victoria Vance's accounts have been frozen. I replied, good. Then a text from Michael. Hannah, Mom asked me to move out. I rented an apartment. Let me know when you want to talk. I didn't reply. Before getting into my car, I called Brenda. Brenda, set up a meeting for me with Leo Vance. I want to offer him a deal. He helps me get the money back. And you, chewed out. And I won't press charges against him. Will he agree? He'll agree. He has no choice. The 2-year scam was exposed, but the war wasn't over yet. A month later, the money came back, but not all of it. Victoria, after selling her Chicago condo and borrowing from relatives, managed to gather only $2 million. I decided not to pursue the remaining $1.2 million, not out of pity, but because I was tired of these people. Robert, under pressure from his mother, sold the plot of land, mortgaged his equipment, and returned $7 million. For the remaining $2.5 million, he signed a promissory note. Eleanor took it, saying, "Hannah, I will get this $2.5 million out of him." I didn't press criminal charges against Michael. Eleanor begged me on her knees. "Hannah, I know he doesn't deserve forgiveness, but he's my son, the father of your children. Please, don't send him to prison." I looked at her gray hair, at her tears, and my heart softened. Not for Michael, but for her. "Eleanor, I won't press charges, but he will no longer work at the company." "I know. I made him sign his shares over to you." She had made him transfer 25% of his 40% stake to me. He was left with 15%. Now I owned 70%, Eleanor had 15%, and he had 15%. The company was completely under my control. The day the papers were signed, Michael sat across from me, not looking up. He had lost a lot of weight, and there was gray in his hair. "Hannah, I'm sorry," he whispered. 20 years of marriage. Was a single sorry enough? No. But I no longer had the strength to hate him. "Sign it," I said. He signed. "Hannah, can we—" "No." I cut him off. "Michael, it's over between us. From now on, we are just business partners." He started to cry and left the room. I never signed the divorce papers. Again, because of Eleanor. "Hannah, please, don't divorce him. I know he's wrong, but I can't watch our family fall apart. I'll sign over all my assets to you. Just stay." I didn't get a divorce. Not for love, not for forgiveness, but because I needed the legal status to protect this house, this company, everything that belonged to me. And because the children deserved to have a family, even if it was just on paper. I gave Michael conditions. He would live separately and was not allowed to return. He would not interfere in company business. He would not meddle in my life. What he did on the side was none of my concern, but there would be no more women at the office and no more disgrace for the family. He agreed to everything. He had no choice. And with that, a new chapter began.